and welcome to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos, the podcast that is equal parts optimistic and realistic. Join me as we navigate the ups and downs that everyday life brings. I'm Lindsay, and I'm so glad you're here. So get a coffee, get comfy, and get ready for a little bit of life's chaos. Well, it is almost a wrap on school for the year this week, my friends. And we are about to enter into a true summer here in Ontario, the thick of which is muggy and buggy and also beautiful, but also muggy and buggy. There are approximately 1 million things to do in the summer in Ontario and all over the country. And yet so many of us and our kids, we're going to be huddled inside on our phones, our iPads, tablets, game systems for hours on end. And why is this? So I learned this year that it's all about a neurochemical called dopamine. This episode, we're going to uncover the reason why it's so hard to get our kids and ourselves off of screens, what's happening inside our brains when we overuse tech, and what we can do about it. My friend and colleague Dee recommended I read a book for work called The Tech Solution by Dr. Shimi Kang. I thought, a bit of professional reading to help the teachers I support in classrooms where they're really struggling to get kids to transition off their technology and back into other modes of learning. Little did I know the impact this book would have on my thinking about my own use of tech, as well as that of my own kids. I discovered so much about how the brain processes and reacts to the screen, as well as the neurochemicals that are released during these screen interactions. So I got really excited about all of this. And I decided to do an episode about the battle we're currently waging with tech. The addictive qualities of these devices is real, and the apps are created to make it even harder for us to look away. I'm not going to sit here for the next 20 minutes and tell you about the horrors of tech. I'm using tech right now, a lot of it, to get this podcast to you. And if I said it was nothing but evil, it would be extremely hypocritical. I know that smartphones and computers and tablets all have the potential to play a really positive role in our lives. And I found out it's not actually so much that we use the tech, it's more about how we use the tech. My own personal tech problem story is about social media. As you may know from previous episodes, I only just returned to the world of social media via the Instagram account I started for Sunny with a Chance of Chaos. Before that account was opened, I had not been on social media for about 3.5 or 4 years. I have actually gone cold turkey off social media 2 different times in my life, and for 2 very different reasons. The first time was Facebook. It was 2015. I had just undergone a major surgery and I was in a bed or on the couch. I was bound for about 6 weeks and it was so boring. I watched almost every single episode of Friends. I listened to a multitude of audiobooks, but mostly what I found myself doing was scrolling. So much mindless scrolling through Facebook. I would spend so many precious hours scrolling where I could have been writing or creating or knitting or watching literally anything else that I could still do from my bed or couch. But instead, I got lost in Facebook. And one day I found myself an hour into my scroll session. My thumb was like numb from the repetitive action. And I was watching funny cat videos. And for anyone who knows me, even the tiniest bit, you'll know I am not a cat person at all. I looked up from my phone and I honestly thought, what am I doing? And I deleted Facebook from my phone that day. I did not open that account again. I currently, full disclosure, I have a new Facebook account that I use primarily for the Buy Nothing group in my neighborhood. This is an awesome use of tech. We'll get into that later. But never again did I use that other account with the mindless scrolling and fake news I had been sucked into with Facebook in general. And I was surprised to find I didn't really even miss it. I was able to fill my time quite nicely without it. The second time I quit was Instagram. I wasn't super active on Instagram. I kind of missed the boat on Instagram. I wasn't on it at all until about 2020, and then I was all over it. I was in a transition period in my life, and I was having to face some difficult things on the daily. Instagram became the place I went to in order to escape. Very common. Lots of people do this. I totally get it. I've been there. Now, I was faced with not only the endless hours of mindless scrolling that I had fallen back into so easily, but I was also dealing with the problem of suffering by comparison. If you remember, I touched on this concept a little bit in episode 2, comparative suffering. I would look at everyone else's life and experiences and think, oh, look at that perfect life. Cognitively, I knew that Instagram was not showing me the whole true picture, but it still made me feel so terrible about myself and my life. Everything from my body image, clothes, hair, skin, money, kids' behavior, accomplishments, vacations, meal prep. The ways I compared myself to other people and their lives was bottomless. It made me feel so small. The day I quit, it was January 13th, 2021. It was around 11 p.m. I'll never forget it. I had another aha moment. I finally recognized that every time I went on social media, I went through the same pattern. And the pattern was this. This may sound familiar to you. Check for likes, feel good, get bored, scroll, compare, feel crummy, post something to generate more likes, keep scrolling, feel worse, put it away, and start the cycle all over again the next hour. I was feeling anxious, distracted, isolated, sad each time I went through that cycle. Lucky for me, I was able to catch myself and say, enough, and delete the app that night. I was having deja vu. We had already been here with Facebook. I surprisingly, again, I didn't go back to it until this spring for the podcast. And while I was gone from Instagram, again, I didn't miss it. Getting back into it, getting the account started for the podcast was kind of scary, I'll be honest. I felt a lot of empathy for people who may be recovering addicts from any number of substances. I felt like perhaps a recovering alcoholic walking into a bar for the first time 3 years after getting sober. It was really risky. The addiction, the comparison, it was right there. So I had to be really careful. And I have now figured out ways to be extremely intentional in the way I access the app and its features. I have a posting schedule, so I don't need to be in the app all the time. There are lots and lots of ways to use tech and apps for good, which I'll get into later. I'm learning about my own limits with these things, with social media in particular, and how not to get sucked in, both from a mental health perspective as well as the whole time suck standpoint and the scrolling. The stories and anecdotes from Tech Solution are much more extreme than my own. My personal story is a much milder version of some of the tales of the effects of tech on people's lives. Anything from addiction to depression, isolation, even physical illness. Here's a few facts from the book that really caught my attention I would love for you to know. Number 1. The rational, long-term, strategic thinking part of a kid's brain isn't fully developed until they're about 25 years old. Overuse and or misuse of tech can severely disrupt this development. Number 2, the sudden spike in rates of loneliness, depression, suicidal behavior, and anxiety in teenagers started in 2012. Coincidentally, the same year that the smartphone reached market saturation. Number 3, many social media platforms and video games are designed to trigger dopamine release. The most successful techniques that these companies use hook us by exploiting deep-seated human needs, such as social approval, novelty, social reciprocity, the stuff we're wired for. Number 4, in 2018, the World Health Organization added gaming disorder to its international classification of diseases. One of the kiddos from the book is in his 20s now. He still attends the Narcotics Anonymous meetings, which was the program that he entered to help him kick his gaming addiction. Through this story and others like it in the book, I came to realize that the brain doesn't actually know the difference between a drug, a flashing game on a screen, winning a soccer championship, or getting 100 likes on Facebook. All your brain knows is that there's this great feeling that comes from each of these activities and situation, and then it craves that feeling, and it drives you to do more of whatever gave you that feeling. The key player in the tech addiction game is dopamine. So, what is dopamine and why is it important? Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's released when you achieve something or do something fun. It just makes you feel good. The good feeling that dopamine gives you after pleasant experiences, including good food, sex, winning a game, finishing a puzzle, can also happen after drinking, drugs, gaming, gambling, gaining followers on social media. When we start wanting to feel another rush of this dopamine reward, we seek out the thing that released the dopamine. It turns into a loop of wanting, seeking, getting, and voila, addiction. When the thing we're addicted to is a walk in nature or a certain song we can't get enough of, this is not a problematic cycle. But when the thing we're addicted to is a streak in Duolingo or a streak in Snapchat, things can get a little less healthy for us, and most importantly, for kids. So back at the beginning, I was talking about summertime. In the summer, our kids may end up indoors more than we would like, and just maybe we might too. On screens, devices getting dopamine hits from sources far beyond what evolution intended. So how do we break the cycle, and how do we get dopamine in healthier ways? I have compiled for you here 12 ways you and your kids and all your other people can get dopamine hits in more natural ways without ever touching a device. This research was so fun to do. It was awesome. Number 1, surprise, surprise, it's exercise. When I was researching natural dopamine hits, this is the one that came up over and over and over and over and over again. Regular exercise helps to keep your dopamine levels a little more stable, so you aren't getting huge highs and lows, which can lead to addiction. Just so we're clear, when you hear people talking about that runner's high, that's endorphins. It's not dopamine. You don't have to run. I promise you. You don't have to run a half marathon to get a dopamine hit. Regular exercise here means walking, yoga, pickleball, shooting baskets or pucks in the driveway, that kind of thing. Number 2, listening to music. Check out what I learned. Music is a major trigger for a dopamine release. That those chills you feel or the goosebumps you get when you hear a certain song, that is a result of the dopamine being released in your brain. And, super cool, apparently Clair de Lune is one of the most dopamine-inducing songs out there. My son is currently learning that song on the piano, so I guess I'm getting a lot of dopamine by proxy. It's so awesome. So try convincing your kids or yourself to turn on some music, get lost in a few favorite songs instead of opening the TikTok app. Number 3, finish a book. What a great sense of accomplishment that is when you finish that final page and close it and put it back on the shelf. Oh, I love it. This is a wonderful, healthy, productive way to escape the everyday and get a little shot of dopamine while you're at it. You could even keep a list of books you've read or audiobooked this summer. List making is actually another way to get dopamine flowing, and I'll explain that more later on in this list. Number 4, eat well and make it taste good. Have you ever bitten into a peach in Ontario in August or a cob of corn dripping with butter near the end of July? That eyes closed, juice dripping down your chin look of euphoria, this is real. And it's caused by a few different neurochemicals, one of which is dopamine. Eating good food that is good for you, is nutritionally dense, is an excellent way to activate the pleasure center. Number 5, get some sun. Vitamin D, the sunlight vitamin, it actually increases the synthesis and release of dopamine. I'm not saying don't wear sunscreen. I never said that. Wear the sunscreen. And also, get some sun. And now you know why at the end of every episode, I remind you to turn your face toward the sun. Who knew? Who knew? Number 6, do a puzzle. You know that feeling you get when you find a piece you've been looking for the past 10 minutes, or that head rush that happens when you place the last piece into the puzzle to finish? I have never experienced in all my years of teaching a kiddo who doesn't want to fight to put in the last piece of the puzzle. They all want it. It's like they inherently just intuitively know that they're going to get a dopamine hit from it, maybe. I don't know. Number 7, learn to play a musical instrument. Not only by doing this are you getting the benefits of music in general, as I talked about earlier, but you're also getting this sense of accomplishment in completing something, acquiring a new skill, both of which release dopamine. Number 8, take on a healthy challenge. Maybe it's a summer reading challenge at the library, or maybe it's a certain number of kilometers walked challenge that you make up for yourself. In my family, every summer we play a silly game called Watermelon Roulette. It is comprised of us simply buying multiple watermelons over the course of the summer and checking off on a chart on the fridge whether or not it was a good one. It's so silly, but it's really rewarding at the end of the summer when we can see how many amazing watermelons we've eaten. We apparently eat a lot of watermelon in my house. Number 9, work hard. Just work hard. Just build something, pull weeds, grow veggies, paint something. Anything with a visible result at the end will give you that sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, and you get a dopamine release. Number 10, make a list and check the things off as you go. This extremely gratifying practice is sure to get dopamine going. It feels so good to check things off a to-do list. For me, anyway, I'm very type A. Sometimes I add things to the list that I've already completed just so I can check it off. Also, my kids and I, we make a summer fun checklist each year. We get a big piece of Bristol board from the dollar store. We hang it in the kitchen and we add to it all the things we want to do this summer. Anything from beach days to one summer we built a pear launcher. This one was really weird, but it was super fun. And as we complete the fun activities, we check them off. And at the end, we have a colorful visual memory of all the fun we had as we say goodbye to summer and move back into the routines of fall. Number 11 is gratitude. This one is wildly simple. Did you know that simply feeling feelings of gratitude can release happy hormones and neurochemicals into your system? Feeling grateful a little each and every day can increase dopamine and make you want to be even more grateful going forward. I don't think you can go wrong with an addiction to just being grateful for your life. It feels like an okay thing to be addicted to. Number 12, give a gift. Everyone loves receiving gifts. I do too. But giving presents to other people is an equally effective way to activate that pleasure zone in your brain. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be enough to make someone smile. Now, inevitably, we're going to find ourselves using tech in the world we live in now. It is simply the way things are progressing. Realistically, we're in a tech world. However, there's multiple ways in which we can use tech in a healthy way and activate positive and happy neurochemicals without creating unhealthy addictions and habits. Here's a few options for you. Use tech that enhances creativity. Maybe you create a slideshow of the top pictures from the summer, or make an iMovie of your road trip. Maybe on a rainy summer day, you're stuck inside and you and the kids turn on Art Hub for Kids on YouTube. Maybe you learn how to draw a Snorlax. Apparently this is a Pokemon character. Lots of tech offers creative outlets. This podcast is one example, so try diving into some of those options. Also, you can use tech that builds community. I mentioned earlier I opened a new Facebook account just so I could be part of the Neighborhood Buy Nothing group, and I love it. I get to connect with my neighbors. I give stuff away. I rehome other people's unneeded items. I don't throw anything away. It all gets reused. It's the ultimate form of recycling. And when I engage in this group, I meet new people from my community and connect with them. And it's a positive use of social media. Neighborhood groups like this also keep me informed of things happening in my community, like fundraisers, awareness events such as Pride and Indigenous events. Maybe through social media, your kiddo can find a pen pal from a faraway place and learn a little about the world that way. Lots of ways to build community and increase connection without the side effects of isolation, addiction, comparative suffering, and anxiety. Lastly, we can use tech to increase our self-care, believe it or not. I use an app almost daily for mindfulness and sleep help called Insight Timer. There's another one called Calm. I personally use Insight Timer. It has meditations, affirmations, music, singing bowls, you name it. It has come in handy for me more than once on a sleepless night or those days when the anxiety is just really high and it's just sitting right in my chest. For kids, there's an awesome YouTube and Spotify channel called Mrs. Honeybee. She is so cute. She tells meditative and calming bedtime stories for kids that are sweet and calm and put me to sleep every time my kids use them. You can also find and use apps to track everything: your water intake, your menstrual cycle, exercise, stress levels, and sleep to help keep you focused on self-care throughout the day. So there you have it. Tech isn't evil. It's not the tech itself that's evil. It's just the way we use it. It just needs to be used carefully, in moderation, and with intention and purpose. Welcome to the Stacks. This is a pretty easy one to start with. Obviously, I recommend you read The Tech Solution by Dr. Jimmy Kang. It's an easy read. It's user-friendly. It has everything you need to know to get you and your family back on track with healthy tech use. The other suggestions for the Stacks this week are apps that enhance my life instead of deplete it. A very useful tool on my phone for me has been Audible. It's an app that requires a paid membership, but it offers you access to thousands of audiobooks, and I use it every single day. In fact, I listen to The Tech Solution on audiobook, and the irony of this is not lost on me, just so we're clear. I also want to highlight again the app Insight Timer. It is free and it has more meditations and affirmations and music than you will ever need in a lifetime. There's even this awesome woman who will read to you chapters from Alice in Wonderland. Puts me to sleep every time. There's something for everyone. I use it almost every day to help me stay grounded, stay centered, stay calm, and it helps put me to sleep. I keep my grocery lists and other pertinent information on my notes on my phone. That's another app I use. I have an Apple device, so I'm not sure what the Android equivalent is, but that way, when I need to, I can add things to the list while I'm thinking about it rather than having to remember it when I get home or when I get to the store. God forbid we forget to add coffee to the list in this house. Oh boy. And as always, gratitude is the antidote for chaos in my life. This week, I need to express gratitude to JL for his help and support with the audio troubleshooting time and time again. His support has helped the sound quality of this podcast evolve and improve over time, and I honestly couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much, JL, for your help. And don't forget, when the chaos hits, you might need a little dopamine. So turn your face towards the sun. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye.